Let's talk about how to prepare for a Black Swan event. By the end of this video, you're going to know how to prepare for the unexpected and even maybe the unlikely. Keep watching. When you think about 9/11, COVID-19, or even the attack on Pearl Harbor, do you find yourself wondering if any of these things could have been predicted, or if there's things that might be in the future for you or your organization that maybe you can anticipate a little bit better? Well, by the end of this video, you'll know the answer to those questions. By definition, a Black Swan event is a high-impact event that's nearly impossible to predict. It takes people by surprise. So based on us understanding what it is, shouldn't it be completely impossible for you to predict? Why should we even bother with this topic? The fact of the matter is there are actually very few Black Swan events, and oftentimes we're only surprised by them because we're somewhat siloed. Believe it or not, most of those Black Swan events that have happened in our lifetime have actually been predicted by people with very specialized areas of knowledge. But oftentimes these people are not the ones that the general population has access to. And so while they might predict it, for us, it comes out of left field because we've never heard this information. Their predictions are oftentimes not things that make it into our nightly news or even our cable news networks. So how are we supposed to find out about these things? Oftentimes, the general population doesn't have insights into these topics or doesn't even know enough to ask the right questions. However, I do want to give you two examples of events that we think of as Black Swan events that were actually predicted. One of my favorite books is called Factfulness. And what's so fascinating about this particular book is that the author goes on to show how most of the things we as humans believe around the world are actually patently false. Our perceptions of the world are off, percentage of people who are educated or not educated, or levels of abuse, or the definition of a third world country. All of these things are not based in fact any longer. And he goes on to prove that we're actually less accurate than monkeys or a randomized picker in terms of our perceptions of the world. And so it's this fascinating book where he goes and dispels many of the misconceptions we have about the entire world. One of the things he does is he digs deeper into some of the things that we see as dangers that actually aren't dangerous to us right now. The author spends much of the book disproving many of the misconceptions that we carry as humans. Most of our fears, he shows that the majority of them are actually unfounded. The things that we're most concerned about really aren't the things that are the biggest danger. But do you know what he concluded in 2018? So we can read this book and see it in 2018 as being the biggest concern for humanity: a flu pandemic. Now, mind you, the author of the book was a medical researcher, so this is what he did for a living. And after he talked about climate change and overpopulation and all these other things we were most concerned about, he concluded none of those were the issue. The thing that was most likely to have the biggest impact on us in the near future was in fact a flu pandemic. Was COVID-19 actually a Black Swan event? And he's not the only medical scientist that was ringing the bell on this potential danger. This has been going on for about a decade before the pandemic actually hit. So it's not really a Black Swan event. Another example would be Rick Rescorla, who is the former security chief at Morgan Stanley. He actually predicted a 9/11 type event. Rick had already created a contingency plan for what he would do in case of a 9/11 type event and how he would evacuate his people out of the building. Well, lo and behold, when his tower was struck, Rick already had a plan in place, and he was able to evacuate hundreds of Morgan Stanley employees. Now, he lost his life in the process, but he saved hundreds of lives. So the question is a 9/11 type event, was it really a Black Swan event at the time? I have a few more pieces of information to share with you, but before I go forward, let me ask you a question. Have you already subscribed to this channel? If not, what are you waiting for? We have tons of great content where we're sharing all kinds of information about being strategic in business. You don't want to miss out. Go ahead and subscribe right now. So what is the number one tip I have for you in better planning for Black Swan events? Look outside of your industry. I gave you two examples of people who had specialized knowledge. Rick had military experience. We talk about the author of Factfulness. He was a medical researcher and doctor. And so there are people within these different areas that are constantly telling us over and over again, or actually shouting to the wind sometimes, what challenges they see approaching. But the general population, we're so busy just carrying on and focusing on our industries that we can't hear it. So making just a little bit of time, we can't be on top of all of it, but from time to time, look at a few medical journals. From time to time, See what some security personnel are talking about from a national security level, and start to see if you're starting to see buzz around certain things. And so here's the big piece. In worst case scenarios and what they're predicting or suggesting could be potential problems, start to think now about how that will impact your business and start to create contingency plans in case the things that they're predicting actually happen. I want to encourage you to go outside of your normal news sources. So not just your local news and not even your favorite cable television station. Now, mind you, I don't want you to go off into Nuttyville. I'm somebody, I'm happy to say, I live in Houston, Texas. Houston is blue, Texas is red. I'm actually independent right in the middle. I vote across lines, okay? So I'm someone who's pretty politically, I won't say neutral, but I'm even, right? And let me tell you, I want you to be very careful about your sources because the problem is when you go too far out in either direction, they meet back in the middle in the land of cuckoo. That's not where I'm sending you, okay? So don't go there. I don't want you to go to conspiracy theory land, but I do want you to go to the people that eat, sleep, and breathe their professions. The people who have been trained and who understand security, who understand science, who understand all these different things that could impact us, whether it's sociology, anything that could impact us in the future, and hear what they have to say. What are some of the black swan events that they're predicting as possibilities? And then we can start preparing ourselves against those. So maybe the news sources that we're looking at from time to time aren't the most interesting or exciting. They're not that newsutainment many of us have become accustomed to, but they do have a great deal of information from people with specialized knowledge. Speaking of preparing for the future, if you look under the description of this video, you'll find that I have a free gift for you. It is my Future Ready Playbook. It's full of worksheets and activities that will help you be more strategic in planning your future. Make sure you go and download it today.